Okay, guys, so we're gonna go through the test review for sections 2.4 to 2.7. So for question 1, it's asking us to solve. So to solve here, we're gonna take a square root of both sides. Remember, anytime that you are taking a square root, you need to remember the plus minus in front. Anytime that it is a negative, that is going to come out as an I. Okay, so now we just need to do our factor tree on 32 and we need to split it. So anytime that you're unsure, try to see if you can do a 2. So I can take out a 2 and a 16. I can split 16 into a 2 and an 8. I can split 8 into 2 and 4, and I can split 4 into 2 and 2. Okay, now I'm looking for buddies. I'm looking for pairs. So there's 2 pairs there, and then this guy is by itself. So when we are doing that, remember anything that has a pair comes out, anything that does not stays underneath. So I'm taking out a 2, I'm taking out another 2, I'm taking out the I from above, and then underneath the square root, I still have a 2. Then I need to combine that all together for my final answer, x equals plus or minus. I'm multiplying those 2's together, so I get 4i square root of 2. So there's your final answer for number 1. Okay, for number 2, this is when you are dividing the exponent by 4. So I'm doing 93 divided by 4, I get a 0.25. Remember, for these, we have I to the first power is I to the 0 power is 1, I squared is -1, and I cubed is -I. Okay, so the 0.25, that's 1/4, so that is I to the first. This is just equal to I. For B, we're doing 202 divided by 4. We get 50.5. I don't care about the first number. I just care about that 0.5. And that's 2/4. So that means it's the same as I squared, which is equal to -1. For 400, you get a 0.0. It's a whole number. So that is going to be I to the 0 power, which is 1. Then for the 51st, I'm doing 51 divided by 4, and I get 12.75. So that 0.75 tells me it's I cubed, which means it's -I. So this is just something that you have to remember, divide it by 4, and then match it up to these over here. Okay. Moving on to number 3, complex conjugate. That is just changing the sign in front of the I term, the imaginary part. So now I have 7 minus 10i. I don't do anything to the real part. For this question, this is out of order. You need to change the sign that is in front of the imaginary term. So now it's going to be -4 minus 10i, because that 4 is negative, that sign stays with that. You are not changing the sign in the middle, you are changing the sign that is in front of the I term. And then for G, it's going to be -9 minus 2i. And then for H, there's no real term here, but the sign in front of the 42 is positive, so it's going to be -42i. Okay, so you're just changing the sign that is in front of the imaginary part. Number 4, it is asking us to perform the given operation and simplify completely. Make sure you are paying attention to what the sign is. This is a plus, so that means we are just combining like terms. I saw a lot of you guys trying to multiply this stuff. That is not what you're doing. You are adding. So we are combining like terms. The 3 plus the 9 gives me 12. The 2i plus the -10i gives me -8i, and that is my answer. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm doing. Combine like terms. For J, same thing. These two can be combined. The -9 stays in front. Make sure you are writing it, the real part, then the imaginary part. Okay. For K, this is a negative sign. So the first thing we have to do is we have to change all of our signs. Now we can combine our like terms just like normal. So -10 plus -6 is -16. 4 plus 4 gives me 8i. Okay, same thing for L. Change all those signs in there. Then combine like terms. So 8 minus 6 gives me 2, -2i, -9i, -11i. Okay, so you are just combining your like terms there. If it's a negative, make sure you distribute it first and then combine like terms. Okay, we're going to go up to question M. So for this one, this is a multiplication because there's no symbol in between those two parentheses. So you're going to be distributing. So I'm distributing that 3 to the 6 and to the -I. So 3 times 6 gives me 18. 3 times -I is -3i. Then I do the same thing with the -8. 8 times 6 gives me 48. So I've got 48i minus 8i squared. Okay, remember, I squared is equal to -1. So I do that, I cross it out and I change that to a plus. So now from here, I'm just combining my like terms again. 18 plus 8, 26. And then I have my 48i plus my -3i gives me 45i, and there's my final answer for this question. And remember, it's always real part, then imaginary part. And you're gonna do the same thing, distribute. So I get 40 minus 16i, I get -30i plus 12i squared. Okay, and then the I squared is a -1, so change, and now that's a negative. Combine like terms, 40 minus 12 is 28. -16 and -30 is going to give us -46i, and there's our final answer there. Okay, so with your multiplication, you're just distributing, you're foiling. Now we're going to division. When we divide, remember you need to multiply by the complex conjugate of the denominator. So I'm multiplying by 3 plus 2i on the top and the bottom. Okay, so for this one, again, we're just doing it like two separate multiplication problems. Keep the top and the bottom separate until you combine them. All right, so I'm going to multiply this out. I get 12 plus 8i. I get minus 6i minus 4i squared. Over, then on the bottom, remember the middle terms need to cancel out. So I get 9 minus 6i plus 6i, and then minus 4i squared. Okay, middle terms cancel, change those I squareds into -1s. So now that becomes a plus, that becomes a plus. Okay, then from here, combine like terms, 12 plus 4 gives me 16. 8 minus 6 gives me 2i on the top. On the bottom, I've got 9 plus 4, which gives me 13. I can't simplify that at all, so I can leave it like that. Or I can write it separately. I can say 16 over 13 plus 2 over 13i. Either one is fine there. Most of the time, you're going to see it as the chunk, though, but you can split it up. All right, for P, doing the same thing, multiply by the complex conjugate at the bottom. This one should be a little easier just because there's only one term on top. So we're multiplying by 5 minus 3i. So I get 15 minus 9i over 25 minus 15i plus 15i minus 9i squared. Change that I squared into a plus. Combine like terms, and remember the top needs to be rewritten as the real part first, then the imaginary part. These cancel. So I get, it's already in that order. So 15 minus 9i over 25 plus 9 gives me 34. Okay, and again, I can't simplify this one, so this is going to be my final answer as well. Okay, but you always need to check, see if you can simplify something. And just see if you can simplify. If you can simplify it, you need to make sure that you're simplifying and dividing. So if they all had a 2, I would take a 2 out of all of them. But these are, neither of these can be simplified. Okay. All right, so that's it for our complex numbers. Now we're getting on to the discriminant. Remember, discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. If the discriminant is positive, there's 2 real. If it's negative, there's 0 real or 2 complex. And if it is 0, then there is 1 real solution, okay? So when we are plugging in, we just need to find A, B, and C. So my B value is 10, so 10 squared minus 4 times 10 times 4. I get 100 minus, I believe that's 160. Yep, 160. So I get negative 60. So this is negative, so I have 0 real or 2 complex solutions. So these are both part of your answers. You need the words and you need the number. For 6, we're doing the exact same thing. So my A is 8, my B is 1, and then my C is -3. So I've got b squared minus 4 times 8 times negative 3. 1 squared is just 1 minus 4 times 8 times negative 3 gives me negative 96, but it's a plus 96 because it's minus a negative. So that's going to give us 97, which is positive, which means we have 2 real solutions. Okay, so that's it for the front page. Now we're going to go to the back. Okay, so for questions 7 and 8, you are using the quadratic formula, but you need to get it equal to 0 first. So I'm going to subtract 60 from both sides. So I've got 3x squared plus 8x minus 60 equals 0. Okay, now from here, it needs to be equal to 0 so that we can use the quadratic formula where a is 3, b is 8, and c is negative 60. So now I've got x equals negative 8, b squared minus 4ac, all over 2 times a. And remember, guys, you are getting your 3 separate numbers here. You are not putting them together until the very end. Okay, so I need to do 8 squared is 64, 4 times 3 times 60, 720. So I got 64 minus 720 equals negative 656. Okay. So now from here, okay, so I did that together wrong because this was minus a negative. So when we add those together, it'd be 64 plus 4 times 3 times 60 because the 2 negatives together, so we get 784. If you have a large number like that, check and see if it is a perfect square. This one is, it's the square root of 784 is 28. So we end up with x equals negative 8 plus or minus 28 over 6. And this is when you split into one's positive, one's negative. So we're going to do negative 8 plus 28 over 6, and we're going to do negative 8 minus 28 over 6. And then you're just simplifying. So negative 8 plus 28 is 20 over 6. Negative 8 minus 28 gives us negative 36 over 6. So 20 over 6, I just want to simplify that into a fraction. So for this one, I can divide them both by 2. So I get 10 over 3 as one answer. Negative 36 divided by 6 is going to give me negative 6. So there are my 2 answers for those. Okay. Now for question number 8. Again, we want to get this equal to 0 first. So I'm going to subtract 3x. I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides. So I get 4x squared minus 3x minus 1 equals 0. And now I can use my quadratic formula. Negative b, so x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So I've got 9 plus 16, which gives me 25 over 8. And again, square root of 25 is 5. So I'm going to end up with 3 plus or minus 5 over 8. And then I want to split into my positive and my negative. So 3 plus 5 over 8. And then 3 minus 5 over 8. So I get 8 over 8, which is 1. And then for the second one, 3 minus 5 gives me negative 2 over 8, which is just negative 1 over 4. Okay, so there are the 2 answers for that one. So biggest thing, guys, is just be careful. I know you know how to plug in and simplify. You just need to be careful with your signs and making sure that they're in there correctly. Okay, so last one like this, x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times negative 2. So I've got 64 minus 80 over negative 4. and I get negative 16 in there. Let's just rewrite that. Okay, and the square root of negative 16, that is equal to 4i. So I've got negative 8 plus or minus 4i over negative 4. Then I need to see if I can simplify all of these. So I'm looking at the 8, the 4, and the 4. I can divide all of those by negative 4 because I want to get rid of that denominator completely. So I'm going to end up with 2 plus or minus I as my final answer there, because I'm dividing each of them by negative 4. If you had a negative 2 divided by a negative 1, that's fine too. You can again split those up if you want to split those up. So we get 2 plus or minus I for that question. Okay. All right, number 10, it is asking us to find the missing information. If I have a focus and a vertex, I need to find the directrix, I need to find the equation. So just draw yourself a little sketch to see what's going on. Here's my vertex at 0, 0. My focus is at 0, 20, which would be up here. So I know my parabola is going to be opening up. I know my directrix is going to be down below. Okay, so my directrix, it is horizontal. So horizontal is y equals. So y is equal to negative 20 because it has to be the same distance from the focus to the directrix. Then for my equation, that's going to be y equals, because it's opening up, it's going to be positive. Remember, it's 1 over 4 times the focal length. Our focal length here is 20 because that's the distance from the focus to the vertex. So 4 times 20 gives me 80, and then I just finish it up with an x squared. Okay. All right, we got focus and directrix here. So again, draw yourself a little sketch, see what's going on. So I have a focus at 8, 0, which means it's over here. I have a directrix at x equals negative 8, which is going to be over there. My vertex has to be in the middle, and it's going to be opening to the right. So now that I know it's opening to the right, I know I have to start with an x equals. My focal length is 8 here because that's the distance from my vertex to my focus. So I've got 1 over, and then I'm doing 4 times 8, which gives me 32. It's opening to the right, so that's positive, and then I just finish it up with y squared. Okay, so we just need to figure out which way it was opening, figure out if that's positive or negative, and figure out if you're starting with an x or a y. Okay, so that's it for that one. Number 12, given the equation, determine the focus and the directrix. So again, the number below is we multiply that by 4, the focal length by 4 to get it in there. So we're going to divide by 4. So we just have 7 over 4 equals the focal length. Okay, we know that this is going to be opening down because it's negative and it's a y equal. So it's y equals a negative, which means y tells me up or down, negative tells me down. So now I just need to find the focus and the directrix. The focus needs to be here. The directrix needs to be here. So now I just need to name those. So directrix equals, and that's horizontal, so that's y equals 7 over 4. My focus is below that, and it is on the y-axis, so my x value is 0, my y value is negative 7 over 4, because they're opposites of each other. Okay, for number 13, this is going to be opening to the right because it is a positive x value, so my focus needs to be over here, my directrix needs to be over here. I need my focal length, which is I just take this divided by 4, so focal length equals 4. So my directrix will be x equals 4. Sorry, negative 4, because it's on the left. And then my focus, my x value is positive 4. My y value is 0. So again, draw those pictures. They are super, super helpful. So make sure you draw those pictures in order to understand which way it's opening, where's the directrix, where's the focus. Okay. For number 14, this one should be super easy. You are just finding the halfway point between these two. So that's right there. There's my vertex. It always opens towards the focus and away from the directrix. So there is your answer right there with your vertex at 2, 1. Okay. Number 15 and 16, you are completing the square. So remember to do this. You first subtract That extra number off to the side, you add in a box. I need to complete that square. To figure out what goes in the box, we are taking our b value, 8, divide it by 2, and then square it. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16, so 16 goes in the box. Okay, then from there, combine your like terms, we get 1 over here. Then on the right-hand side, you are going into parentheses. What goes in the parentheses? The one that's in the parentheses. So it's x plus 4 squared. Last step, just move it back. So we get y equals x plus 4 squared minus 1. Okay. Number 16, we're going to do the exact same thing. First, add that 10 to the other side. So I've got 10 plus the box equals x squared minus 4x plus the box. To figure out what goes in the box, negative 4 divided by 2, square it. Negative 4 divided by 2 is 2. Square that, we get 4. 4 goes in the box. On the left, combine your like terms, 14 equals. On the right, we are going to put in our parentheses. What goes in the parentheses? The thing that's in the parentheses. So it's just x minus 2 squared. Then from here, just move this back over to the right-hand side. So we get y, or in this case, they used f of x. So we're going to do f of x equals x minus 2 squared minus 14. Okay, so that is it for our review. If you need to go back to check on some of those questions, go back, pause it, go over these as many times as you need to. Yeah, and good luck on your test.